So, hi everyone. I'm Sai. I've been with Zoho for the past 6 odd years. So, I'm at this point a senior evangelist because I'm one of those guys with the megaphones here out asking people to switch to digital signatures because I know paperwork can be pretty tiring and cumbersome and all that. And this is also my third time participating in the real estate user group meetup. As I did mention, when people are joining in, Chris is a veteran in this group, and I've known Chris since the first meetup, and he was just remarking that I was a kid back then, and then now I've sort of grown up and all that. So yeah, we've come a long way, and our product Zoho Sign has also come a long way. Uh, the primary reason behind us choosing to feature this product over and over again is that, as Divya just mentioned, real estate is something that is filled to the brim with paperwork, and often a lot of people tend to struggle with paperwork because you might be the best real estate agent that could be in your area, but as long as you don't get the paperwork done, your deal is not closed yet, right? And it's often this paperwork that's something that slips out of your control because of just how long it takes or how messy it can get. So what we're trying to do is solve all that with Zoho Sign, and as a product that goes hand in hand with a lot of other products within Zoho that you can probably use along with. It's something that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. So the focus of this session, let me just quickly get over to the agenda, is going to start off with probably just giving you an overview on what Zoho Sign is capable of, what it can do, and why we had it, in the first place. Why did we come up with this app in the first place? And I'm going to be jumping into the app directly and showing you some of the features that can be very useful, especially in the real estate user scenarios. You have templates and sign forms which help you things speed things up. You have authentication. You have how you can use AI in paperwork now. Now that AI is all the rage and everybody wants to get in on the act, and how you can also sort of leverage some of the integrations that we have to collect payments. And if you're perhaps a larger setup, meaning you have like a full-blown agency with multiple employees and so on, how you can maybe segment your data in a way that it makes sense for people to have access to only what they need to have access to, and so on. So that's kind of all I have. It's going to be a fairly short session. I know we have the whole meetup scheduled for about an hour and a half, but I'll try to keep my presentation to under 30 to 40 minutes so that we have enough time for questions, discussions, and so on. For the next 10 odd minutes, I'm just going to introduce Zoho Sign because we can see that there are a few people, as we were speaking to attendees as they were joining, that are quite new to Zoho in general. So they may or may not know what Zoho Sign is. So if you're somebody who's attended a past meetup and know what the application is, maybe the first next 10 minutes or so, I'm sorry to bore you, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be useful to the others who are new. Nonetheless, I hope you can tune in and maybe catch on the updates that we've added since the last meetup. So the point I'm trying to make before I get into Zoho Sign is that our world runs on agreements, and all of us are very human, and we tend to sort of meet people, establish relationships, establish connections on the basis of agreements. Most agreements are not on paper, but in the world of business, they're almost always on paper. And if they're on paper, then that means we are going to be capturing them with signatures and following them up with payments, especially when it's transactional in nature. And the whole process to doing agreements has multiple steps, and these steps are fairly repetitive, fairly cumbersome, fairly boring. But that's just the way it is. We have to do it because the law says that we have to get it done on paper. And at the end of the day, even if we get it done on paper, that does not necessarily mean that it has to be manual. It can be digitized, and the process can be made a lot better. Now, since the pandemic of 2020, things have changed, right? Agreements are approached slightly differently. The process continues to remain the same. The number of steps involved in the process is still the same. The stakeholders in the process is still the same. Um, the way we negotiate is also still the same. It's just that the overall approach has changed because now people tend to sort of take more liking to the digital way of doing things. People are more likely to use devices. People are more likely to connect virtually, and the whole doing a deal over the table and meeting in person is kind of slowly fading out. And doing a lot of online meetings and Zoom meetings and etc. are kind of like the rage right now. So when you have something that has completely switched up in terms of approach, then automatically with that there will be changes in the process. I mean, there will be changes to how you get the process done as well, right? Some important things to remark now is that a lot of workspaces tend to be very hybrid, meaning people are operating remotely, or people are sort of not always in a face-to-face scenario, and experiences tend to be digital first. So earlier, when people met face-to-face, there was a lot of things that we used to focus on, like body language, making the first impression right, the tone of our voice, and so on. Now, all those touch points are slightly different because you're connecting with people virtually and you're doing business over digital medium. So, other things need to be taken care of, like what software you're using and how easy is that software to handle for somebody who's not familiar with software, and things like that. And these things tend to matter because when people don't have a good time using such, or don't have a good time getting into such changes, then it's bound to affect them mentally, and it's going to affect the prospects of a deal happening as well. And another important thing to take into account is that now things are happening virtually, right? Earlier, when people met face to face, when transactions occurred, they occurred within a specific geographical boundary or a legal jurisdiction. So now, when things happen online, then there is always a question of what law applies where. And these tend, if they are people transacting across borders, state borders, federal borders, international borders, whatever it is, then there is a question of whatever deal that they are agreeing on having to be applicable both sets of across both sides of the border, right? So all of these things need to be very well considered before we go ahead and even start using a digital tool. And regardless of all of these things, changes in approach and all that, paperwork, like I said, is going to be ever present. Especially in real estate, you will have tons and tons of paperwork for you to get things done, and it is just kind of something that takes up half of your time easily, right? I think anybody would agree with this. And what we are trying to do is reduce the amount of time paperwork takes by getting rid of all the manual repetitive tasks and solving that problem with Zoho Sign, right? So um, a reason why we have Zoho Sign, as I said, it's fairly well established that paperwork is difficult to work with and all of that, but there are certain changes to the challenges and questions that are being posed right now because of the change in approach. Right now that you're doing business across borders, that also means you're doing business across time zones, which means when you're not meeting somebody face to face, then you might send something off for somebody to sign, but that person needs to receive it at a time that is convenient for them. So these time sensitivity things need to be taken into account. And of course, like I said, if paperwork is going to be repetitive and cumbersome, and if you're going to make that easier with software, there is a chance that you are going to have oversight creep in, and that might lead to errors, right? So how do you get rid of that? And of course, when you are not actually seeing somebody face to face, there will be concerns of trust and security. We are human after all, right? So we need to look and see somebody. We need to shake hands over, have that touch, have that sort of reinforcement mentally for us to be able to buy into a deal. But that is not present with a virtual deal, right? So how do we deal with that? And in an era where cyber threats sort of are all around, we also have questions of privacy, compliance, and so on. So, in general, there is a low confidence that people are presented with when doing business online. But, like I said, that is something we are attempting to solve. And what we are doing with Zoho Sign is we are slowly building a solution that can be end-to-end agreement management with all the digital signature capabilities and identity verification capabilities in place, so that any piece of paper document that you have can be digitized, as you can see on your screen, can be converted into a digital format, and can be sent across to different people for them to sign. And as they sign, a lot of the things that they normally take care of, like what fields of information they need to enter, what sort of verification they need to undergo, and all of those things need to be taken care of. And we are attempting to solve all of that with Zoho Sign, right? As an application, it's fairly simple. It is very similar to just getting a piece of document signed across a table, but instead you're doing it over your phone. But in the process, we are allowing you to craft customizable workflows, collect signatures, approvals, even build documents into templates so that you can reuse them over and over again rather than having to draft them from scratch every time. And the idea is at the end of the day, when you have them digitally signed, they will be legally binding and enforceable in court. and you will have all the supplementary information in place for you to be able to track the process, capture the process, or audit the process as we call it, and have the reports for you to hold people accountable. Right? So that's what Zoho Sign brings to the table. It is a complete digital signature solution that digitizes the end-to-end process of getting your agreements and paperwork signed. And it is an application that we have available across all popular platforms, right? It is an application that you can access on your web browser on any device, but we do have native applications present for Android, iOS, iPadOS, macOS, whatever Apple device that you use, and also for Windows. And if you are a Zoho user, meaning you are bought into the Zoho ecosystem of applications where we have, say, 55 applications to run your entire business, then Zoho Sign is no longer an application in that case because it then becomes a service that becomes available within each of your primary applications inside Zoho. It is very well integrated across about 15 odd popular applications within Zoho so that it connects contextually for you to bring in data, craft documents, get them signed, and store them back into the different applications. And if, let's say, you happen to use other third party applications as well, the same capabilities can be extended to those with Zoho Signs integrations as well. Now, um, as we were also mentioning earlier, not all of you need to be real estate folks out and out. Some of you would be, say, having side hustles that involve development, freelancing, or say some other domain for that matter, right? So each of these domains have their own niche needs and requirements. And I'm pretty sure paperwork is something that's going to be there in every domain. And for all such requirements, we always have a solution that you can craft with our APIs and other developer tools that we have at our disposal. Now, something that I definitely want to talk about before I dive into the demos is that now you're signing documents here, and which normally means that it is a matter of identity, trust, confidence, and so on, right? Now, how do you often verify that somebody who signed a document online is in fact the person that they claim to be? It's as simple as it is for somebody to just copy paste the image of somebody else's signature to forge a document, but it's not as easy for somebody who's looking at that document to then verify that, hey, this is in fact authentic or genuine and so on. So how do we get around that is by having our application, that is Zoho Sign, integrate with trust services. So trust services are bodies or organizations that offer identity solutions, certification solutions, and so on, licensed by governmental or central federal authorities. And what we have been doing at Zoho Sign is we are going around into different countries and identifying the primary trust services that exist, and we are directly integrating with them so as to be able to enable our users to identify their signers, right? For example, there is a digital identity card in India that's called the Aadhaar, and it is like, say, the social security number in the US, right? There is a single unique number that can help identify each and every person that holds an Aadhaar card, right? And what we do is we integrate directly with the service provider of or the identity provider, which is a governmental body, to help validate the identity of a person. So what happens there is when somebody signs the document, they're asked to present their Aadhaar number, and at that time there is an authentication mechanism that is entirely carried out by the third party verification service directly from the Aadhaar's portal, and then that helps us validate that the identity is not being forged there. And we are carrying out similar integrated services across different geographies. In the US particularly, we have something called knowledge based authentication, which is powered by a trust service provider called ideology. And what they do is similar to Aadhaar, they take a part of your social security information and try and map what information you provided them with public records, and then give you sort of randomized questions and so on. I will get into that a little later when I do the demo, but it's just to give you a preview of how we go about establishing that trust and establishing identity and capturing it in the document so that it can hold people accountable and also have that non-repudiation factor come into the picture. So what we do as of now in Zoho Sign to enforce trust is we have identity linked authentication, we have identity linked signatures. We also have something called trusted document timestamping, which allows us to fetch timestamps from federal accredited bodies. And we also have stamp duty payment that is electronically done. I'm not sure if that's available in the US at this point, but it is available in some other geographies. But slowly but surely, we are going to be expanding on these services being available across the globe with more and more bodies integrated with Zoho Sign. Now, what it helps us achieve here is e-signatures are fairly scattered in terms of how the legality of it is uh, captured in the regulatory frameworks available in different countries. Um, Normally, e-sign laws are not as easy to interpret. In the US, of course, the landmark e-sign act was the first e-signature piece of law legislation to ever be passed. But all that did was to just make e-signatures legal, right? There was nothing further specified because the technology was very nascent at that point when it was passed. That sort of brought about the security measures in place or had all the various sophisticated functionalities that e-signatures are accompanied by these days. So those things weren't set out in law. But later on, it was followed by other sets of laws across different geographies that laid out tiers of signatures, tiers of authorities or certifying bodies, and so on, which slowly but eventually sort of categorize these signatures to fall under different levels based on the kind of authentication that takes place, the kind of applicability or the level of transactional involvement of or where the signatures come in and so on. And now we have a clearer picture as to how e-signatures are perceived by different courts and legal authorities, and we can kind of now confidently say that a lot of the technology that is there does comply with the different tiers or levels of signature that is required by authorities. And especially Zoho Sign, by virtue of, as I said, integrating with these various trust services, what we do now is because of these integrations that we have in place, we are able to confidently state that we are compliant with these various e-sign laws across the globe. So no matter where you sign your document, so long as you use the right integration, you can get these documents to be accepted by the court of law in your jurisdiction because it does follow the specifications laid out in whatever framework that you have that governs e-signatures in your country. And of course, like I said, if you are somebody who's bought into the Zoho ecosystem, then by extension, you will have the platform security and the privacy features that Zoho brings to all of its apps. That is, especially in Zoho Sign, all your documents will be completely encrypted at rest and in transit. You have your documents being completely safe behind multiple levels of authentication, which involve not just the basic credentials, but also a multi-factor authentication involving biometrics, OTPs, and so on. There is a single sign-on available. Zoho does not have third-party trackers or ads, which could possibly track how what you do with the documents and what goes into your usage of the applications and so on. And Zoho Sign particularly has always taken pride in being up pretty much all the time. It offers bank level security because it is an application centered around confidential documents and so on, with automated cloud backup and uh, data residency laws being followed by having different data centers across geographies and so on. So yeah, everything that a cloud application would need to have in this day and age, Zoho has all of that backed up, and by using Zoho Sign, you get all of that boxed in. So what's ahead in when you start using Zoho Sign is that we are slowly transitioning, like I said, from just an application that helps you sign documents into a full end-to-end agreement management solution, which means that eventually we will have online notarization, video signing, even more trust service providers integrations and compliance aspects of things taken care of as well. We are an app that has been constantly innovating and building on in terms of features. I'm sure people who've used Zoho Sign since our launch are testament can testify to how much we've come ahead in terms of progress of adding features to the app. So yeah, before I proceed on to the demos, I'm happy to take questions first. But I also have something that I think would be of great use to the real estate group of folks, especially because I know a lot of you use forms. I do keep tabs. So
Yeah.
I have been keeping tabs on the real estate click channel, and I can see that a lot of people use Zoho Forms. And Zoho Forms is an application that is very dynamic in building online forms, and we know that it has a very strong integration with Zoho CRM as well. So I can see that a lot of people make very good use of it. But something that we are working on right now is, getting people to use the integration between Zoho Forms and Zoho Sign. The reason why I say this is because often people ask us for a three-way integration between Zoho CRM, Zoho Forms, and Zoho Sign, wherein if somebody fills in, say, one of their forms that they've set up on Zoho Form, they want information to be uh, going into Zoho CRM to create a contact or a potential or whatever, and they also want a document to be sent out or prepared for signature and so on. But unfortunately, three-way integrations aren't a thing right now in Zoho, though we are getting there with the unification of the platform. As of now, that is not a thing. So what we can do instead as a workaround is have documents be sent for signatures directly from form submissions, and then have the document signing take place, which will then feed data into Zoho CRM. Or you can have Zoho CRM have a form being sent to someone, and then once they finish the form, they get a document to sign through the Zoho Sign Zoho Forms integration. So that way, what happens is you will not have three applications speaking to each other at the same time, but rather you will have information being funneled from one application to the other and to the other. So it was like a chain of integrations, if you can imagine that. Um, so that is something that we have been suggesting to a lot of customers who asked us to build a three-way integration, and so far they've seen moderate success in using the sign and forms integration. So we thought, why not, um, have that be promoted to other folks who might find it useful as well. So in the real estate space, especially, we see that a lot of users are using forms and CRM and Sign. But if you're kind of trying to wrap your head around as to to make all three of them work at the same time, you can use the Sign and Forms integration, and you can use the CRM and Sign integration, or you can use the Forms and CRM integration. You can use the Sign and CRM integration. Just integrate them two at a time, and then have them set off a workflow, and that'll work just fine. But what we're giving here for you to check this out and maybe play around a bit and see if this is going to work for you is, uh, you can scan this QR. It'll take you to a page where it'll show you what the forms and sign integration can do for you. And in the process, you can get like $50 worth of Zoho wallet credits, which get added to your wallet in Zoho Store. And then you can use that and redeem that against application licenses within Zoho, which you can then maybe use to try one of these applications in case you don't have a license yet. So yeah, please feel free to try that, and then let us know how it works, and we are happy to take feedback from this. With that, let me go into the other topics that I had in my agenda, which are primarily just demos of how things have sort of can help you with real estate transactions, and how things can um, make productivity go up for you, make things more efficient, and so on. The first feature that I wanted to talk about was templates and sign forms. Now, the idea behind templates and sign forms is that you have documents and workflows be saved in the format that you would send them out, or reuse them over and over again. And that way you have the ability to make things more efficient for you without having to spend time creating things from scratch. And at the same time, there are a lot more enhancements that we brought into templates now that offer you the flexibility of being able to merge templates, merge documents, and so on. So I wanted to show all of that in a real demo so that it's easier for you to understand. Now, so I'm now into the Zoho Sign application, and this is my dashboard in the Zoho Sign application. As if you are familiar with Zoho Sign, you would know that two primary functions are to be able to sign documents yourself or send them out for signatures. Now, when you want to send documents out for signatures, you can just add your documents here, drag them, And you can construct a workflow wherein you can add multiple recipients, define the order in which the recipients receive the documents, specify the details, decide what they should be doing with the documents, how they get the document link. That is, if they get it just via email, which is the default mode, or if they get it via SMS as well. And then you do other things like, say, you can customize for each and every recipient. If you want to add a private note, you can add if you want to authenticate them additionally, and so on, right? All of this is done when you want to send a document out for signatures, and then you proceed on to the documents where you drag and drop the different fields of information, drag and drop the fields of signatures, initials, and so on, and you send it out, right? Now, this is something is what we call setting up the workflow, or setting up the signature request, or the envelope, or whatever you call it, to get your document signed. What templates allow you to do is it allows you to upload a certain standard set of documents that you have, that you would reuse over and over again. Meaning, it's, say, forms, or it's documents with blanks, wherein is just information that changes with every person that signs a document, or recipient that signs a document. And rather than you having to upload the document each and every single time and have that workflow be created every time as well, you can just create it once as a template and simply click on that and reuse it by just specifying who the recipient is each time. And that way, the process reduces the number of clicks you're going to be doing, and it makes it a whole lot easier, and even helps with the integrations as well. So, uh, as you could see, the screen for send for signatures, the template screen is going to look a far more similar. So if you go inside templates, you have the option to create this exact same workflow, except here you can now add documents. So let me just go ahead and add a few documents just to give you an example. So let's say if you're a real estate firm, you're probably going to have like an NDA, depending on what you're quoting your prospective clients. So you don't want them to go after other agents. Let's say you also have like a rental agreement or something of that sort. Now, you would have a standard envelope where you would have a few a few sets of documents that you would send out for signatures, right? Now, these documents can then be clubbed together to create a template. And the idea here is that you can now merge these documents into single files, if you want to. If not, you can just keep them as separate files within the same envelope as well. And here you can add multiple recipients. So let's say here this is going to involve, like, say, a landlord, or and then it's going to involve the tenant, right? So we can create the roles so that the landlord and the tenant changes with every single transaction that you make, and you can decide who does what. And you can even add like an additional recipient. Say this is like the broker who has to approve this overall thing. Then you can add a broker and give them a role as well. And depending on the information that you're operating with, whether you have just the email of the people, or if you have their phone number as well, you can choose either of the two, and you can customize and add multiple things. And once you've set up all of these things, you can then also determine how long each of these requests would be valid for. What is the total amount of duration that you want to allot for somebody to start signing this document? Where do you want to put this document inside your system? Uh, what folder, what type of document, and so on. And then you also have a place where you can add a common message, so that that reflects in the email that goes out. And once that's done, you can go inside the document. Now, both the documents that I've added just here, the documents are going to be showing up. And I can now add the different fields of information that need to be added into the document for each of the respective recipients, who would then fill in only those fields and sign the document. First up, there are pre-fill fields. These are fields where you put in information that you already have information from your, say, your CRM or some other source of information. So I can add pre-fill fields, and I can add fill data onto them even as I'm dynamically sending them out for signature at any point in time. And then I can add fields of information for each of the recipients. So if let's say we have this non-disclosure agreement followed by this deed of rent document, I can add the name for the landlord here, and then I can add the name of the landlord for the deed of rent as well. Don't mind my dragging and dropping of random fields here. I'm just doing this for demo purposes. Um, and I can move on to the tenant, and I can add their name as well. And then you can basically just add the piece of the signature field at the very bottom. And with that, you're obviously, like the real document with a real estate transaction would have far more fields, but just as an illustrative measure, I've added these fields now. Once this is done, you can save this template, and after this template is saved, now you're ready to sort of execute these documents with any landlord tenant pair that you were working with. And it just makes things a whole lot easier for you to just click on this template each and every time and just add these fields of information that you need to add, and then you can send it out. So if you are just a broker yourself, you could just add yourself here and have that information be always pre-filled. Or if you're an agency that works with multiple brokers, then you can add that information each and every time you send it out. And this is the idea of having like a template that makes things a whole lot easier. And it we have a lot more things. So of course, there would be sort of documents that need to be uh, dynamically added to each and every request. Say one of your potential tenants has like a criminal record or something. In that particular scenario, you would want to sort of have a written affidavit stating that that is in their past, and you expect them to kind of be on their best behavior going forward, and so on. So if that is like an additional piece of document and you have a template, then now you need to send all three of these documents at the same time. It was earlier not possible for you to do that, but now we have like these additional enhancements that allows you to just click on send for signatures, add a document from add a template. Say I can add this template that I just created, and that would bring in the different documents, and it would automatically bring in these import the workflow as well. But now I can add an additional document to this as well and send it out. It's just something that's a lot more flexible as opposed to earlier it being just a template that you could just use, or if not, you had to create things from scratch. So this makes things a whole lot easier for you as somebody who's operating with lots of clients, lots of deals are constantly being worked on, and so on. Now, sign forms, on the other hand, is an even easier version of how you can go about executing these templates. So let's say you have uh, a f- an application for a lease, right? Now, an application for a lease would mean anybody could technically apply, and then you go through the respective applicants and then you pick the ones that you think would fit the lease. Now, most of these applications would need to be sort of posted at like a public space where people have access to that information. And then when they apply for that lease, obviously they would need to sign a document or an undertaking stating that information that they provided is true, and so on. How do you go about getting such a piece of information signed and duly delivered to you when you don't have the information of who's going to apply? So that is where you can create a template of that particular application. And what you can do is you can convert that into a sign form. And what it does is it essentially creates that template request into a public link. And that link, now in this case, let me try and okay, I'm just going to upload a template here because I've created that with three different recipients. So let's say I'm going to add, say, a social media policy or something of that sort. This is a document that anybody could take. Anybody that's applying for a lease, I want them to fill out. Let's say I have a HOA that does not like people taking pictures of my house or something and putting up because they fear that it could uh, 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 cause antisocial elements to come in and paint graffiti all over the walls or whatever. No, when things like that happen, they tend to enforce weird policies like these. When you have policies like that, obviously you would want people to sign it before they even move into a house, right? So how would you know, or how would you get the signatures on these documents before you evaluate somebody's candidacy for a rent? You can simply just create a template and then have that template just let's just call this person who's signing this template a candidate, and then we can add the fields of information that they would need to fill in and sign. Again, you have the option of adding pre-fill fields as well, but I'm just going to add name and signature here. And with that, I'm just going to save this. And with that saved, I will then convert this into a sign form. Now, once I convert this into a sign form, what happens is, let me just give it a name, SMP for lease, and then let me create this. Now, it creates, in a sense, a form out of that particular template. And this form has a public URL. Now I can just go paste this URL, and what that would allow me to do is to fill in my name and email and go ahead and sign that form. So let's say I fill in my name. Let's call myself Dave, and this is going to be my email. I'm going to click on start signing, and then I'm immediately taken to this one document that I would need to sign. And like I said, this is a public URL, so the person accessing this, as long as they have the link, they can access this document, go through the terms, agree to it, fill in the information that is there, enter their signature, and click on finish. Once this is done, if I go back to my Zoho Sign account, and this is the form that I've created, if I refresh this, you can see that you've received one response on the form, right? Now I can click on view associated responses, and it will show me who has filled in this form. I can see who this is about and see what information they filled into this document, and then use that information to validate how I want to proceed with this person, whether I want to extend the lease to this person or whether I want to reject it, and so on. So it's just something that offers you the ability to get your documents signed and also have it be made publicly available to collect information from anybody that's volunteering with this information, and so on. So it's just one of those easier ways of getting things done in real estate transactions. And that is pretty much all that is there with respect to templates and sign forms. The application itself is very simple, but templates and sign forms just makes it even more easier for you to get your things done and in order. The next thing I have is knowledge-based authentication. What this essentially does is helps you verify the identity of people receiving your documents for signatures or approval. This is something, let me go ahead inside Zoho Sign and show you where you can access this. So if you go to settings inside Zoho Sign and you go to integrations, you will find identity providers on the left navigation pane, where you can see dynamic knowledge base authentication via Ideology. So Ideology, as I said, is a trust service provider based out of the United States. And what they do is they have uh, a repository of publicly available information that they connect to, which contains information linked to social security of anybody that has a social security in the US. And what, in essence, you're setting up here is you send documents out for people to sign, and when they attempt to access this document at the level of access itself, before they even see the document or the contents of the document, they are asked to validate their identity. And at that point, they're asked to present information which would then be used to validate their identity. So setting this up is fairly simple, especially in real estate. This is something you would find very handy because often there is a lot of background verification and stuff like that happens when you validate a person's candidacy for a lease or a tenancy agreement, right? Now, before you engage a real third party into doing the background verification, you want to make sure you're not being spoofed or you're not being somebody is not impersonating just to get a transaction going, right? So this is like the first cut of that background verification, if you can imagine that. So you can just configure this within Zoho Sign, and you can enable it. And when you enable it, it allows you to sort of decide how you want to configure it, how many attempts somebody has before they are sort of no longer given chances to prove their identity and things like that. Now, I won't read through all of this because it's fairly self-explanatory. Rather, I will just show you what it looks like when it's enabled and a document is sent for somebody to sign. So in so this is what it looks like when somebody receives a document to sign and you have knowledge-based authentication enabled. When they click on proceed to sign the document, they're asked to present information like their year of birth, the last four digits of their social security, and an address that they're currently residing in. And at that point, that information is used to fetch other publicly available information, say from voter data, credit bureau data, and stuff like that. That is, like I said, publicly available. And it then uses that to sort of generate questions and poses that set of questions to the person, who then have to answer the questions. And based on the answers, whether they match with the data that is being fetched, there is a reasonable amount of um, uh, evidence to determine if this person is in fact who they are claiming to be. And since these are dynamically generated questions, there is no fixed set of questions that one could do multiple attempts with and then start guessing the answers with. So this is already mandated in some certain very specific high level transactions in the US by banks and uh, uh, governmental authorities. So this is something that's picking up in the real estate scene as well. So we thought, okay, why not have this be available? And we are seeing a lot of traction for this in both real estate and BFSI. So next is I wanted to talk about next. I want to talk about AI in paperwork. Now, most of you who use Zoho might know that we already have our own AI assistant called Zia that is available within multiple applications as sort of offering smaller enhancements here and there where AI can sort of pitch in. And we've also integrated with the OpenAI framework to sort of leverage their generative AI capabilities, ChatGPT and the likes, to have some enhancements available within various Zoho applications. In Zoho Sign particularly, there are two different places where you can make use of AI to get your paperwork done in an easier manner. First one I'd like to showcase is where you can automatically add fields into a document. So let's say you have, like I said, a rental agreement that you want to send out to someone, right? You have this document prepared and you have it stored in your device. Now, let me upload this document. Now, as you can see here in this particular document, this is what the document looks like. It has a lot of blanks. It has a lot of places where you can drag and drop fields. But normally, in a document that's maybe like 3 pages long, dragging and dropping fields isn't such a cumbersome task. But if it's say 40 pages long, then that becomes pretty arduous, right? So what we have is an AI that can read through the contents of the document and contextually place information. And again, this enhancement is completely in-house. It is empowered by Zia, so your data is not leaving Zoho data centers. It is completely being processed within the Zoho data center, and the AI is not trained on this data. It simply reads through the data and contextually fetches the fields that are required to be placed in the document. So let me give you an example of this. So this is a document I'm going to be sort of sending to one of my clients, right? Now, as soon as I add the document, set up the workflow as I usually do, um, once I'm inside the document viewer page, I'm going to sort of have this small pop-up at the bottom right that says detect fields, and it will say our AI assistant will scan the document, detect and automatically insert fields. When I click on continue, it's going to give me more information to sort of take note of, and then it'll ask me to assign the fields to recipients. Of course, at this point in time, you can only assign the fields to one recipient, but we are working on supporting multiple recipients as well. But this does not mean that you cannot add multiple recipients to this document. You can add multiple recipients, you can add the fields, detect the fields and add them, and then reassign the fields to other recipients as a workaround. So let me select the document, and I can only select 15 pages at a time, but this document only has 3 pages. So once I do this and I click on detect and insert, what's going to happen is it's going to read through the document. It's going to automatically insert fields which make contextual sense, right? Of course, you don't have to look at the labels of the fields. The labels of the fields are basically just cues from what it has read. But you can obviously change this. And when I send this document out, all of this information is going to be automatically contextually presented for the signer to sign. So this is pretty cool if you ask me, because it saves you a lot of the hassle of adding fields. Of course, when you have a lot of fields, then you might probably just want to have a check on whether the fields are correct. As of now, we are not facing any errors in terms of if the fields are being correctly placed or not. But again, this is being done by AI, which takes time to perfect itself over time. So maybe just have a look at the document once, and if you trust it enough, you can go ahead and use it. And another enhancement that we have that is powered by AI is the ability to summarize documents. So here I have a document that's there for somebody to read. Now let's say it's a 40-page document. If they do not have the time to read through the whole document because they're already privy to the contents of the document, they can quickly generate a summary which is powered by OpenAI, where it'll give them a very short and concise summary of the document, and then they can go ahead and sign the document. Now, I understand that it might sound a little scary, but there is actually a use case for this. Commonly, if you're an agent that is sort of drafting out a document which is about 25 to 30 pages long, you have worked on the document. So you are aware of what is on the document. So you don't want to spend additional time re-verifying everything that you put inside the document when you get it to sign, right? So at that point in time, this is just like a small measure for you to summarize the document and get it signed. And it can help save a lot of time, because oftentimes you tend to have marginally similar agreements with very small details that vary, and the AI will actually pick up on those differences and will tell you, okay, so this document has probably this one small clause has changed and so on. And that is still enough for you to sort of understand and make sure that you are signing it in the context of knowing, okay, this is what has changed and so on. But yeah, this is pretty handy, and this is something that you can work with as well. And we are working on enhancing this even further to maybe analyze at a clause or a section level to give you more detailed insights if you choose to decide to say ask the AI to elaborate on a particular section of the document and things like that. Now, the next is payment collection within Zoho Sign. Um, One major aspect of transactions is that a lot of people get paperwork signed, but payments take their own sweet time, right? I mean, of course, they are dictated by circumstances of the different people involved in the transaction, but more often than not, you tend to rest easy when you collect some form of at least advance token payment or something like that when you sign a piece of paperwork. So what you can do with Zoho Sign is that you can set up payment collection using our integration with Zoho Checkout. So let me just demonstrate that with a video that I have here. I have a series of videos on how you can go about doing this. So let's say you have a document that you want to send out for signature, and in that document, you want to collect different fields of information and the signature of the person that has to sign the document. But at the same time, there is a separate piece of payment that needs to be accompanied along with the signature. What you can do there is you can actually add a payment field onto the document, and as and when they sign the document, they will be prompted to make the payment as well. So here you can see that there's a sales contract document that's being added and a workflow is being created, and this document is being delivered via SMS as well. And once all of this information is added, you can go ahead and get into the document viewer page where you can add the fields of information. So here you're adding the deadline for the document, and the other things that I just showed you earlier. And once all of that is done, you're adding a note. And once this is done, you are going to be getting inside the document where you drag and drop to add the different fields of information the signer has to fill in. So you're adding in the sales contract, you're adding the name, you're adding other information like the signature, but more importantly, you're also adding the field of payment, which where you decide what the payment would be for once they sign the document. But here, this is where you start to configure your integration with Zoho Checkout. If you do this, this is a one-time process where you just have to set up your organization within Zoho Checkout, and you can then start creating payment pages by integrating with your payment gateway. And once that is done, this process would not be required over and over again, but rather just the dragging and dropping of the payment field for each and every document that you need to get signatures on. So yeah, you can then, inside Zoho Checkout, you have the option of setting up the payment gateway. So this screen would change with respect to which region you're in. So in the US, I think we have integrations with Stripe, PayPal, and a bunch of other payment gateways. But in other parts of the world, obviously, depending on the locally authorized, regulated and regulated vendor lists, approved vendor lists, you would see varying lists of vendors. So once a payment gateway has been set up, all you would need to then do is create a payment page associated with that payment gateway, where you specify the amount that would be collected by somebody accessing that page. So you given the name of the payment, you specify the amount, you specify the frequency and stuff like that. And once that is done, you can make it live. And once it is live, you can then go back into Zoho Sign, and now if you sort of refresh the document where you've added the field, if you click on verify, it'll verify your checkout configuration, and automatically that information is going to reflect within Zoho Sign, as you can see on the right corner. It is going to show you what organization inside Zoho checkout, what payment page, what is the currency mode, and what is the amount that you've set for that particular payment field as well. So once this is done, you can click on confirm and send the document out. And what happens when somebody who receives this document to sign is that they will obviously receive the email or the SMS asking them to sign this document. And when they try to access this document from their email, they would go through the usual process of, say, um, you know, first verifying the document details, who is sending it. And if you have, say, something like knowledge-based authentication enabled, they would go through that authentication process of identifying themselves. And then they would go to the document viewer screen where they can review the document. They can read the disclosure, the terms and conditions, and other things. And once all of that and the fields of information are filled in, they would be automatically be prompted to make the payment as they sign the document. So when they click on pay and e-sign through whichever vendor, they would need to make the payment, at which point they go to the payment page and they enter their card information and make the payment. So once the payment is successful, and only if it is successful, is the document considered signed. If not, it is considered unsigned or uncompleted, because, like I said, this process is meant to collect payments and signatures together. So it is captured as a part of the signature trail within the document that a payment was supposed to be collected. And if it is collected, is when the certificate is actually generated to sign the document. And I know there are issues where sometimes payments get lost in the middle of things and stuff like that, and we have fail safes in place to sort of listen for those delays, and have the transaction be accordingly, or the signing of the document be accordingly delayed until the payment goes through, and only then is the contract executed. So yeah, that's a very simple way of collecting payments as well. Moving on to the very last part of this a meetup presentation, I have how you can set up custom roles and permission profiles within your organization. So in Zoho Sign, earlier we did not have the option for you to create multiple portals or multiple kinds of roles, permission profiles to have data control be done better. Rather, it was a fairly rudimentary way of just having access to the application, being able to sign documents and be done with that. But what we've done now is we've introduced multiple portals. So if, say, you're a broker that is dealing with multiple agencies, you can have different portals for different agencies. Or if you're somebody who has say multiple agents, if you're the agency IT administrator, you have multiple agents working, but they are working independently and they're not supposed to sort of have access to each other's documents or deals and so on. You can then have that data be segmented through the roles and permissions that you create. So I'll get back to the presentation because this is fairly short, and I'll finish this off. So let me quickly jump back into Zoho Sign here again. So this is my dashboard, right? Earlier, what you would see under users and control is you would be able to add users, but there wasn't much you could do here. There wasn't a separate pane here that allowed you to create groups, roles, profiles, and so on. But now, let's say you're a large organization, or you're an agency operating with multiple brokers. What you can do is you can, in fact, create multiple portals. That way, your data is completely separate across portals. But do keep in mind that each portal would require its own license or subscription. But if that is not something you're willing to do, you can at least have different users be added to your organization. So here, uh, in this organization, I have another user called Barbara, who's in the role of HR and has the profile of an agent. But I've also sent out an invitation to, say, Peter, who's another person that I wish to join my Zoho Sign organization. And I actually have Peter's inbox open here with that invitation waiting for Peter to accept. Um, and I also have Peter's account here where Peter does not have a Zoho Sign account yet. If I refresh this page, it's going to ask Peter to create a new Zoho Sign portal, or it's going to ask Peter to join an existing account. If Peter clicks on join an existing account, it's simply going to say contact your administrator, which is basically me who's just sent Peter this invitation. And when Peter clicks that join organization button, Peter can then click accept the invitation and then sign in. So now I can sign in as Peter and accept this particular invitation, which would then mean uh, Peter is now part of the portal that I had added him to. So now if I go here and if I refresh this page, Peter would now land in the dashboard of, um, yeah, Peter should now land in the dashboard of uh, Dave's account. So you can see that Peter is now in the dashboard of Dave's account and Peter is just a user, right? Now let me log back into Dave's account so that I can show you how you can determine what Peter sees and how you can create different roles, permissions, and so on. Right. So if I go into Peter's account now, if I go inside documents, Peter's not going to see any data. And if I go into templates, Peter's not, everything is like brand new and fresh because Peter's just joined this organization, right? But for as far as Dave is concerned, Dave has all of these documents that he's created, these templates that he's created, these sign forms that he's created, and so on, right? So if I go into users and control, I can now see that Peter has joined my organization. And in this, I can decide what role I want to grant Peter, what profile I want to assign Peter to, and so on. Now, what are these role and profile that I have, and why do they sound so similar? I'm sure you have these questions. So let me get into roles first. So roles are basically just a way of determining what data is visible to which user. So here I have a role that's created called HR. Let's ignore that, but there are two default roles. Admin is by default the role that is given to the person who owns this portal, wherein they can see all documents and templates, and user is the role given to anybody that is joining by invitation sent to them from the admin. And to those people, only the documents that they are shared or the documents that they themselves own are visible. So in this case, Peter has joined via invitation, and there has not been a document or a template that's been shared with Peter just yet, and he has not sent out any documents as well. That is why his account is completely empty, right? So if I go ahead and create a role, what is going to happen is it's going to just ask me for a name. So let's say I'll call this role um, broker, right? I can choose to give it a description if I want. If not, I can just create the description as create the role as it is, and I can associate users from the users page. Here under the data sharing tab, I determine what data is going to be visible to this role. So I can either share documents from specific user groups. User groups are in essence just groups of users for you to band team members and users together where data is commonly shared and visible. And that is something that you can assign to this particular role via data sharing, or just share documents from specific users. So I can add, say, if I want documents belonging to Dave to be visible to this role, broker, I can add Dave here. So everything owned by Dave will automatically become visible to all broker role associated users. I can also add documents from specific folders. I can see the default folders that are here. I can also share specific templates. So if I want to add the template that I created, the non-disclosure agreement template, I can add that as well. So once all of this data that needs to be shared with brokers is determined, I can go to users. I can select somebody that needs to be assigned this particular role, and I can change their role to broker. So the moment I change Peter's role to broker, if I go back into Peter's account and I refresh it, now if I go into documents, you can see that Peter can see all the documents that Dave owns. And if I go to templates, the one template that Dave has shared with Peter is also there for Peter to use, right? Now, That is as far as roles are concerned. But if I go into profiles, profiles are something completely different, right? Profiles, in essence, determine what permission each users have. So by default, there's a standard permission profile, and there's an administrator permission profile. The administrator, once again, self-explanatory, will have access to all permissions. This is by default only given to the creator or the owner of the portal, and standard is given to anybody that's invited by this administrator. You can, however, also create your own profiles. So let's say if I want to create a broker profile, I can in each of under this particular profile, I can determine each and every action that this profile associated users can do. Like if they can prepare documents or create workflows, if they can send them out, if they can correct them while they're still in progress, if they can delete them, if they can create templates, edit them, use them, and so on. So and we are expanding on this to also include managing of configurations and settings within the account, but as of now, that still resides with the administrator. So once a profile has been created, then that particular profile, so let's take a look at this agent profile, and you can see what are the different things that are made available to this agent, and then I can assign this profile to the respective users. So here, except for deleting templates, everything else has been made available. So if I go ahead and assign this to Peter, right? Now, if I go to Peter's account and refresh that again, you can see that Peter has the option to pretty much do everything in the templates except for delete. He can even edit as new, but he cannot delete it. And inside the documents, he has the option to delete documents, do everything that he wants to do with the documents. He just does not have the one particular. He just does not have the one particular feature that was disabled for him. So yeah, at this point, this is all that is there in terms of users and control as well. But these are all small changes that we made to the application to make it a lot more comprehensive, uh, for you to for you to make better use of the application and get your paperwork done in a more organized manner. So yeah, this with that, I sort of come to the end of the demos and the presentation that I have. I have resources that I have put up here. You can always access these resources when you get your hands on the deck. But I'm happy to take questions and answer any niche requirements that you might have and provide you with solutions and workarounds to achieve that, if any.